In this video, we'll go over 20 true or false statements based around the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. There will be 3 stages to the difficulty. The first 5 questions will be easy, the next 10 will be of medium difficulty, and then the last 5 questions will be hard. Then there'll be a grading scale at the end of the video to see how well you did. Now, let's get started.
Alright.
The final raid in Wrath of the Lich King was Icecrown Citadel.
What do you mean by final? Like, I mean, it's like Ruby Sanctum came out. Like, I mean, do you really want to call that final? Like, I mean, I guess, no, it's not.
Or more commonly
false.
known as ICC.
It's false.
Crap. The final raid was
There it
actually
is.
the Ruby Sanctum, which was a one-boss mini-raid released a few months after ICC, as kind of a holdover until the next expansion came out. Not very many people remember it because it wasn't very memorable.
No, it wasn't.
Wrath was the first expansion which needed a specific type of flying training in order to
weather
fly
flying.
Northrend.
True.
Fact.
Boom.
You needed cold
Easy.
weather flying training
Easy,
in order to
easy,
fly
easy,
Northrend,
easy.
which cost 1,000 gold and need to be above level 77 to learn it. Since the Burning Crusade introduced flying mounts, they didn't have a special flying training in order to fly in Outlands. Frostmourne was a rare droppable weapon for a while.
No.
Crap. Frostmourne has never been added to the game for
No.
players to use.
Yeah, no.
Although, there is a Frostmourne
That
item
was
in the
easy.
game files that is
Okay.
inaccessible to players, so it seems like Blizzard was bouncing around the idea of letting players get Frostmourne at one point in time.
They changed their mind.
The first raid in Wrath of the Lich King was also the final raid of Vanilla WoW.
Yeah, I mean, Nax. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that would be true. I mean, you could say
Fact, the
Sartharian,
first raid in Wrath of the
but-
Lich King
okay.
was Naxxramas, which was a retooled, nerfed version of the Vanilla WoW raid.
Yep.
In Wrath of the Lich King, Death Knights could tank in all 3 talent trees.
True. That's a fact.
Fact.
Look at that, dude. Look how beautiful that talent tree was. Every single talent tree that DK's had gave them a different type of tanking ability and utility that made them unique and better at different situations. Like Frost DK was versatile, Blood DK was good at tanking big hits like Sartharian 3 Drakes, Unholy DK was good at AoE tanking. Like, it was so fucking amazing, man. Like, I love this. Like, the fact that they were able to do this, like, obviously, like, yeah, DKs were OP, it wasn't really that great of an idea, but, or it didn't work out that well, but the idea of it was really, really cool.
All 3 talent trees had talents specifically designed for tanking, and allowed for 3 different types of tank specs, or
Yep.
3 different kinds of DPS specs, which really just led to some Death Knights to pick some of the more tanky talents in order to give them an edge in PvP. And it was difficult to balance, so they just moved the tanking to the most popular tanking build of Blood Death Knights, and
Easy.
converted the other 2 into pure DPS specs. Alright, and now into the medium level questions. These ones will be a little bit more difficult than the first 5.
I would hope so.
In Wrath, they added the first ever mobs which could drop mounts out in the open world.
True. Yeah, I think that's true. Maybe it is.
Fact,
Yeah.
before Wrath, there wasn't mounts you could farm out in the open world, as all of them were tied to quest chains, vendors, raids /
Yeah,
dungeon bosses,
that's
or
true.
reputations.
Okay.
One of the more famous open world mount drops was the Time Lost Proto-Drake.
Fuck yeah.
Because of the undead theme of the expansion, Wrath had a few undead whale world bosses.
No.
Crap, there were no
Like, whenever he asks a question like that, it actually, like, makes me wonder, like, man, did I fucking forget about, like, an underwater whale world boss? No. But no, okay, it didn't happen.
whale world bosses at all, let alone undead ones. There was concept art though for undead whales that they might have planned to release in Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah, if only.
That never happened.
That would have been fucking awesome.
In addition to tanking and DPS, Death Knights could also be healers.
No.
Crap. Death Knights couldn't heal
No.
humanoids, but their Death
Yeah,
Coil
no.
ability did work on undeads in order to heal
Okay.
them. And they also had a talent which could temporarily turn them into an undead for 10 seconds.
Well, they had that for a
which
while.
then allowed them to heal themselves with Death Coil. With the long quest chain required to create Shadowmourne, Wrath of the Lich King was the first expansion to have legendary weapons.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
Crap. Legendary weapons have existed since Vanilla WoW.
This
In
is
Wrath,
so easy.
a player was accidentally mailed a GM item, which allowed them to instantly kill current
Flammable
content
item.
raid bosses.
True. Very true. I remember this. It was called Martin Fury, I believe.
Fact. A
Yep.
player was accidentally given the shirt
See?
Martin's Fury, which allowed them to kill everything within 30 yards instantly.
Everybody got
And the
banned
player
for
and his
this,
whole
too.
guild got bans for using the item.
Yep.
Wrath is when the famous dance studio was added to the game.
That's not true. We're still waiting on that, Blizzard. Still waiting on it. Any
Crap.
day now.
This is one of the promised features with some of the promotional material that never made it into the game and has become a long-running joke within the game.
Yep.
Wrath was the first expansion in which hunters did not need to use ammo nor mana
Big
to use
not
their
true.
hunter
That's
abilities.
a big not true, because you used to have to go back, like hunters at the beginning of ICC would actually farm out reputation with the Ashen Verdict and clear the trash up to Marigar, because you were able to unlock these special arrows that made you do more damage with your shots. So this is a complete not true.
Crap. Wrath was the last expansion in which you needed those two things.
Yep.
As
It's a
ammo
change
was
in
removed in
Cataclysm.
Cataclysm along with mana and replaced
The
with the new
max instant
focus
reset
system
mana.
that hunters have today. Wrath was the first expansion to have raids with multiple levels of difficulties.
Unfortunately, true. Hey,
Fact, with the raid Trial of the Crusader, Blizzard introduced normal and heroic modes.
what a disaster.
And Wrath was also when 10 and 25-man versions of raids were introduced.
Yep.
Before Wrath, all raids had one difficulty and one set number of players that the raid was tuned around. Wrath
Yeah.
was the only expansion to advertise something on its game box, which did not get added to the game.
That's not true, because they had demon hunters on the box on Vanilla WoW.
Fact, Wrath of the Lich King promised aerial PvP combat, which never made it into the game.
Well, they had demon hunters though. Like, is that not promised? I mean, look, am I right? I mean, I should be right about this, don't you think? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, no, because like, yeah, I think I'm right.
Despite the fact there's a picture of it on the Wrath of the Lich King box, as well as advertisements for it. This is different from something like the Dance Studio, which was promised through videos and other promotional materials. Those things get dropped all the time during development. Rarely do they drop something which makes it to the box art. Wrath
That
was
is
the
true.
expansion to introduce badge gear, which could be
Nope,
obtained
cannot
from
be
dungeon and raid boss
Nope.
kills,
Nope.
and
nope,
turned into
nope,
a vendor
nope.
to buy a piece of raid gear.
Man, these are easy.
Crap. Badge
Shit.
gear was introduced with the Burning Crusade. Wrath just improved upon the system and gave it better things to buy with it.
Dude.
And that's the end of the medium questions.
Okay, all right,
the
here we
next
go.
5 questions will now be the hard ones. Season 8, the last PvP season in Wrath of the Lich King, was the longest PvP season in the game's history.
I think that's true. Like, I really don't. I think this is true. I'm like 90% sure it's true.
Crap.
Really?
Season 8 was the second longest
Wow.
PvP season, clocking in at 37 weeks,
What
as
was
it
the
started
longest?
with patch 3.3.2, and didn't end until Cataclysm came out. So it lasted the entirety of the content
Yeah,
ground
I
for the
thought it
last
would
patch
be-
of
yeah, I
Wrath
thought it'd be way
until
longer.
Cataclysm. In Cataclysm, though, Season 11 lasted for 38 weeks, as it was the PvP season
Holy
stretching out the
shit.
content drought from that last patch to the next expansion, making the
Really?
Cataclysm content drought 1 week longer for the PvP season.
Wow, I had
Cold
no
War
idea.
was the first ever raid to have hard mode versions of normal boss fights.
Yeah, it's true.
Crap. The first hard modes were introduced with AQ40 and the Bug Trio, as you could get better pieces of gear depending on which order you fought the 3 bugs.
Would that be a hard mode, though? Would you guys classify that as a hard mode? Yeah, would you guys classify that as hard mode? I don't know. It doesn't really seem like a hard mode at all. So I'm pretty sure, like, what was the specific question here? What did it say? Just a second, let me read it. First raid to have hard mode versions of each boss. Let's see. What other bosses did they have hard modes on? I want to go back and just like think about it. Well, no, because I mean you could also do like, does it mean like hard mode would drop better gear? Because if you use it from that example, I would say yeah, that would probably be true. SAR 3 Drakes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Because, yeah, Sartharian 3 Drakes. I always forget about that because Old War had, like, the activatable hard modes, and I guess that, yeah, Sartharian 3 Drakes. No, yeah,
Crap.
you're right.
The first hard modes were introduced with AQ40 and the Bug Trio, as you could get better pieces of gear depending on which order you fought the 3 bugs, technically making them the first hard mode trigger in the game. The NPC standing next to Ronan and Dalaran was Varisa Windrunner, Sylvanas' little sister.
Fuck, dude, I don't even remember. I think maybe that's true, but I don't fucking
Fact,
remember.
Varisa and Ronan
Okay,
were married
got it.
before Garrosh killed Ronan in the bombing of Theramore.
Okay.
The Eye of Eternity one boss raid was the raid in between Trial of the Crusader and Icecrown Citadel,
Wait,
making
what?
it the 7th raid added in
That's
Wrath.
like that's an easy question. What are you talking about? Of course not.
Crap. The revamp of Onyxia's Lair was the one boss raid
Oh,
added
I
in
forgot
between
about this
TOC
one
and
too.
ICC,
Oh,
which was
no.
technically the 7th raid added if you count
Yeah, that was an
VOA
easy
as a
question.
raid. Otherwise, it's the 6th. And finally, for the last hardest question, the final dungeon boss of Wrath of the Lich King was Arthas, the Lich King.
Technically true?
Fact. This one is
Yeah?
kind of a double fake out. The final
Yeah,
dungeon
that's
added to the
technically
game was
true.
Halls of Reflection, as it was the 3rd dungeon of the 3 added with the ICC patch.
Yeah.
And the final boss in Halls of Reflection was the Escape from Arthas, technically making Arthas the final dungeon boss.
That's true.
I was also trying to get people to double guess themselves by saying dungeon instead of raid, making people believe it was a trick question, which hopefully didn't trick too many people. Now into the grading scale. I'll have it up on screen. If you got 18 to 20 questions correct,
So I think I missed like 3 or 4. I think, yeah, it was one of the two. Like either 3 or 4 questions
you are
I
a
got
Wrath of the
wrong.
Lich King expert. If you got less than 12 correct, then you get an F. Anyways, I hope you
Wow.
like the addition of difficulty levels to this, and if you have any ideas for other Fact or Crap videos, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments, as well as what your score was, and in particular, which questions you might have got wrong.
That was a good quiz. I feel like some of the questions, like the hard mode question was really good. Like that was a really good question because I got it wrong. Like usually, I mean, I never get questions wrong. But that one, like I should have known that. I was wrong. Because I knew about the bug trio. I absolutely knew about that. That was a genuinely like good question that I got wrong. Very, very rare for that to happen. But it did just happen right there. Dude, TBC? I did TBC, dude. Don't even worry about it. Okay? Man, really? Like y'all are really gonna play me like this? Son of a bitch.